All right. Welcome, food service, passionate food service customers of Performance Foodservice Atlanta. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kyle Cottengim, Vice President of Sales with Performance Foodservice Atlanta. We are coming to you with a great discussion today with top loyal Performance Foodservice Atlanta operators, savvy food service operators, and lifers. This is in conjunction with our first annual Performance Foodservice Virtual Trade Show and Innovation Summit. I want to thank everybody for joining us for an open dialogue discussion centered focused around obviously the impact of COVID for the food service and hospitality industry. Learnings, insights, impacts, but also most importantly, kind of looking into the future. We have four really savvy and loyal Performance Foodservice Atlanta operators joining us from varying degrees of our geographic distribution market. All of these operators have been loyal partners with Performance Foodservice Atlanta for over a decade. So thank you for your business. And again, thank you for your participation. Starting with our first panelist is Carl Sobocinski. He's the president, Table 301 in Greenville, South Carolina. Carl founded his company in 1997 and has spearheaded the company's growth over the course of the last 20 years, really developing downtown Greenville into a culinary epicenter of the Southeast. Some of the brands inside the portfolio are Soby's New South Cuisine, The Lazy Goat, Dive Gastro Pub, Passerelle Bistro, Highway 301 Food Truck, Southern Press Juicery, and Table 301 Catering and Kitchen. Thank you and welcome, Carl. Also, we have Fred Delawalla. He is the president and founder of Restaurant Management Group RMG. Formed his restaurant management group back in 1979. And over the years, Fred has started many restaurants in Metro Atlanta and throughout the country, but specifically in our neck of the woods with Malone's, Simon Seafood Bar and Grill, Old Mill Steakhouse, Giovanna's Italian Kitchen, and most Louisiana Bistreaux, and has 3 locations in the Metro Atlanta marketplace. We also have Gregg Nettleton joining us. Gregg is President and Chief Operating Officer, Casual Dining Division of Fat Brands. Gregg is responsible for the acquisition, integration, transition, and leadership of the performance of brands. These brands include, but not limited to, Buffalo's. We service Buffalo's here out of Performance Atlanta, Elevation Burger, Hurricanes Fat Burger, Yala, Ponderosa, and Bonanza. And we have Daniell, owner of Kirby G, has been the owner of Kirby G since 2008. Neil, amongst many other things, is the 2018 World Burger Champion, also has competed in multiple food competitions throughout his tenure, winning Atlanta's Best Burger in 2016, Atlanta's Best Burger and Bacon of the Atlanta Food Wars in 2018, and you can catch Neil on the big screen and a variety of his TV appearances. So really appreciate those 4 gentlemen joining us. And also with me, we have Danny Fairst, who is our Director of Sales at Performance Foodservice Atlanta. So folks out there tuning in, we sent out a survey to these food service professionals, really focusing on things that kind of transpired throughout the impact of the coronavirus as it hit the hospitality industry quite hard. And some of those questions were around delivery, third-party delivery services, takeout, and of course, focusing on some of the things that we pivoted for business. So really exciting to see different degrees of adaptation throughout. So we've assembled this panel to, again, just gather some insights about the food service space and the future of the industry. And again, some really key takeaways or more importantly, things that have made the biggest impact in their operation. So the first question we're going to be posing to our panelists is, what's one new strategy or business model you have developed or pivoted to during COVID that has made the biggest impact? Fred, I'm going to go ahead and take you off mute, and I'll let you take the first crack at this if you don't mind.
Well, one of the first things, obviously, we had to do was to find a way to survive through the madness. Uh, and the key strategy that we had to first start with is our manpower and people, to say, how are we going to survive through this madness? Because when you go from 100 miles an hour to down to two, which is what happened to all of us, and I'm sure everybody went through the same type of pace. Um, so one of the first things that we experienced is that, all right, we're limited to takeout and delivery. And takeout and delivery model is not a very big model for us as a full service restaurant. We average about 7 to 10% of our sales in those two facets. So how do we pivot, and how do we create that? So we went through very, very painful first 3 or 4 weeks, until we try to figure out every little way of saying, how do we get our food to travel better? Because one of the challenges for us in our concepts, Louisiana Bistro, is very heavy seafood. Uh, so seafood is not definitely microwavable, as we all agree, that you can't just take it and pop it in a microwave and reheat it and bring it to the life, so to speak. Not that meat or chicken is much more forgivable, but seafood's just that much more delicate. So we played with all kinds of different things in terms of saying, how can we touch up our seafood with sauces and different things to allow it a little extra moisture and little things, and give them some directions as far as reheating and that type of stuff to try and increase our sales. And by and large, as an end result, we've gone from doing 7 to 10% of our sales in carryout. We're over 30% right now as we speak.
Wow. Impressive. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So knowing that, I mean, have you adjusted your menu as it relates to what you're offering or what products you're using, or was it more about packaging and educating the customer on reheating?
Well, first and foremost, given that we all are faced with employees not coming to work and having a skeleton staff, one of the first things we did is pare down the menus. That we can't try to execute 50 items on the menu and try and be able to deliver the excellence in quality. So we say, okay, let's cut the menu down. Then we worked on, at the same time, we worked on packaging, delivery model. And by the way, this may help some of you. I pretty much approached Uber and I said, look, guys, our sales volume is rising and I want you to cut your commission. And at first they looked at me and said, you're out of your mind. I said, no, I'm not out of my mind. I need you to cut your commission in half. So we were paying, and in full disclosure here, I hope this stays amongst us here. And if you use me, I'll deny any knowledge of it. So we were at 27%. So when you give up 27% of your sales from the top line, there's not a whole heck of a lot left, because that is all you're doing initially. So I proposed to them 15%. And basically I told them, I said, either you play ball with me or you can watch me from the sidelines. And
there you go. Well,
I'll go to DoorDash.
Yeah.
I'll go to DoorDash or somebody else who's going to play ball with me, and I will do an exclusive deal with them.
Very nice. Well, congratulations on your negotiation power. I'm going to bring you next time I need to buy a car, Fred.
You got it. So guess what? They agreed to it.
Good.
So we are doing 15% commission with Uber. That includes credit cards. So there's no additional credit card fees, and that's something that. And by the way, we've given them exclusive, so they are exclusive third-party delivery. and it's just so happens they acquired Postmates yesterday.
Yep.
So we can continue with Postmates. However, our sales volume has already increased 1/3 from where we were before we cut the deal.
Very nice. Well, congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing that, Fred. Greg, obviously you have so many varying different business models, so to speak, and brands. Is there anything that hadn't been mentioned just yet that you feel like has been successful for any of your particular brands, maybe Just Buffalo's or any of the brands across the country?
Yeah, I think adding to what Fred shared, first of all, we're 100% franchise based, so we have a little bit different operating model. But we look at every location in our segment as an individual operating business. So we look out for the health of the franchisees because that's our model. Initially, we looked to leverage every single opportunity we had to generate income for the franchisees. We accelerated our current off-premise. We also went to them and negotiated, and we accelerated every opportunity. But then we started looking at an optimization process, and we look at what we're doing with the high commission rates of off-premise, and we started leveraging our, and with a little greater emphasis on our direct order and pickup business. Because if you think about it, that's far less commission. If we can start leveraging that, but less on the delivery platforms, then it's going to be greater profitability for our franchisees getting through this first round. The second thing we did was we leveraged our outside patio. We're fortunate to have a lot of locations with very large patios. And when the restrictions came in and dining was forbidden, we could only go to outside and social distancing inside, we leveraged every square inch of those outside patios. Then we made adjustments to our service procedures to shorten the run times for our servers. Because if you can imagine, our servers are used to working inside the restaurant. Now we have all the tables outside. It's going to be a pretty long day as they're doing this. So we adjusted our procedures to take care of our team members in that process. I think the key to this whole thing was when we started down this path 16 to 17 weeks ago, and it's hard to believe it's been that long, but it has. We had the attitude that we couldn't do this alone. Nobody had the answers by themselves. We'd never been in this position before. So I reached out to a number of friends of mine who are large multi-unit franchisees of other brands, many of which are PFG customers. And we talked often and we shared our procedures because we realized that nobody had the answer by themselves. So we shared our communications, our procedures, and most importantly, our innovations as we went through this process. And I think the result has been good for all of those who were on that little subset of conversations that we had. And I think the other thing that we did at the start, which was a big benefit for our franchisees, was we provided guidance in the PPP, the SBA programs, and how to have discussions with their landlords. We all know with PPP, you had to get in early, even if the funds didn't come for a while. You had to get in the queue. You had to apply for the SBA if it made sense for you. But most importantly were the discussions that we had with their landlords. And we didn't just leave it to them to have their discussions. We partnered with them in conversations to get either their rent deferred, abated, or added to the end of their lease, whichever made sense in discussing with their landlords. Anything we could do to preserve that important level of profitability during both the phase 1 and phase 2 process.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that, Greg. And again, I love the fact that you know, not doing it alone and understanding. That's one thing I've always appreciated about working with you is, you know, the only way we all grow is if we share best practices and again, kind of challenge each other to do things differently. And then, hey, what worked for you and is that applicable to my business? So thank you for sharing so much, Greg. Neil, one thing I definitely want you to talk about, but also didn't want to not give you an opportunity to talk about any pivots that you made. So are there any of the pivots that you made that have helped, or you're big on the communication to your community and to your customers? So either of those two discussion topics, something that has helped you?
Yeah, actually, our communications with the community was actually a very big deal in 2 fronts. First, it allowed us to quickly change our model over. We didn't do delivery. We actually started our own delivery and started delivering it out, and it's worked for us. It allowed me to it allowed me to keep staff on. So people that were typically servers, I made them into drivers. And so we used another method to get out to them. But we communicated it more routinely with the customer. We used multiple platforms to talk with them. The typical social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and now Parler, TikTok. But the big thing I think that probably really helped us is sending out routine messages through our loyalty program, also sending out messages through Google. Marketing, using our Google business page so that we could figure out where those customers were. We could see where they were actually living, where they were calling us from, what times they were calling us from, and using the Google business page to actually target those customers. And so we could actually send out messages to them and let them know who we were. The big thing with us is that, as you did mention earlier, we are the World Burger Champs in 2018. And so we were a known brand, and we had a very good, strong brand in that regard. And the customers loved us, and they wanted to see us survive. So we took the approach of, you know, look, we're not getting money much from the customers, but, you know, there are a lot of people wanting to do things for the hospital. So we took the approach of letting our customers know, hey, look, if you donate funds, we'll cook food and take them up to the hospitals and give it to the hospitals. And it was very successful there, right about to the time they allowed indoor dining, which is what you would expect. I mean, then it tailed off again. I expected that when we get shut down again, they'll do the same thing again because they are concerned about it. That's allowed us to really focus on our brand strength, and then tie into the community. It allowed us to bring in corporate customers that, while we have corporate customers in the area that are large, well, their families and things come and dine with us. And so corporate customers picked us up, and we're actually servicing one of the corporate customers in the area as well through that method. And it's really helped tremendously. If I was going to give anybody a piece of advice right now, is if you do not control your Google business page, you need to control it, because you can go claim it. You can see all kind of insights and things that are very, very, very critical to your operations, and let people know where the customers are coming from, when they're visiting you, and what times they're calling you, and what they're looking for. It's been very helpful for us.
I might have to recruit you to do a little Google business page training for the rest of our customer base for us, Neil.
I've been doing it for people down here near me, because you would be amazed at the number of people that they don't even know how to control it and how to get onto it and look at the insights on it. I will say this, one of the key things, Kyle, is Google allows you to post to your business page. And what that does is, so if I make a Facebook post, I can actually take that same message, post it out on Google, and it shows up in the search thread. So when a customer Googles Kirby G's Diner, it shows up in the search thread, and it's showing him pictures of my food or whatever we may have going on at the time. So it's a way for us to dictate what's in the thread that customers see. Very critical.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm definitely taking some notes on that. We might follow back on that for sure. And lastly, Mr. Sobocinski, I had the pleasure of getting into your email communication campaign on the front end. I don't want to singularly focus on that, but I was wildly impressed with how you connected with the community, your associates, and your customers throughout. I'd love to turn it over to you at this time to see if you wanted to expand upon that or any other pivots throughout the process that have been kind of everlasting success. All right, I think you should be good now. I think I took your phone off mute, Carl. I know he was transitioning between the screen and the phone, so you might have to come back. Carl. All right, we'll to that. Oh, there he is.
No.
right, we'll come back to that in just a second. Carl, I'm going to leave you off mute. Feel free to chime in if we do catch you. Otherwise, we'll reconnect in just a second. All right. Let's see. Fred, I'm gonna kind of throw this back on you from you did speak about obviously the challenges of manpower and then reopening the dining room. What were your findings as it relates to how you had to change your, the standard operating procedures, kind of the back of the house, front of the house, in order to get prepared for what we all know we didn't know what was happening?
Well, one of the first things through this pandemic, as soon as it hit and we shut down, because of some of the tenure of our employees, I have 250 employees between all my restaurants. And I kept them all on the payroll, did not furlough a single employee. And by the time PPP had kicked in, we had paid them out of pocket for 4 weeks, which was pretty expensive. However, my thought process was that I've got employees that have been with me anywhere from 15 to 32 years, a fair amount of employees. And I didn't feel like I could walk away and just turn my back on them. And I did that strictly with the hope that when we come out of this at the other end, the employees will appreciate what we've done for them, and we will be a stronger group. My ambitions were short-lived. It really didn't work out the way my anticipation was. Employees basically think that they're receiving money from the government and they didn't receive anything from me in the first 4 weeks that I paid them, so to speak. And so it was an expensive learning lesson on my end. But if I had to do it all over again, because I believe in our people as much as I do, I'd probably do it all over again if I had to do it all over again. Having said that, obviously when we were able to get going and have the option of dine-in, which dine-in option was still, with the social distancing, people are not open to just come and sit in the restaurant, so they're resorting to outside space, and outside space is limited with 10, 12 tables that we can have. So we pretty much had to lean on our key employees and at least have them come back and start the process of rebuilding the restaurant and the sales back to, so that we can start turning the wheels of this locomotive that we have. And it was a slow start, but we're almost up to 65% of our sales from last year, which is, I feel that given all the cost cutting and everything we have done from the get-go, we are in a cash flow positive situation now, which was my number one fear, is to survive through this pandemic and somehow figure out a way to be cash flow positive at a lower volume, so that once we come out of it, we can flourish. And that's what we're positioned to do at this time. I'm not sure if I answered every question.
Yeah.
You kind of posed at me here.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a fluid situation, as not only this call, but obviously what we're dealing with out there. But I do appreciate you sharing that for sure. Neil, you talked about obviously the connection with a different sales revenue stream with the donation and the hospital, and of course, as once dining rooms opened up, that might have fallen off a little bit. Have you figured out any other revenue streams or other, did you do any of the grocery type stuff? Did you do any of the family meals, or when you were doing the in-house delivery, did you just basically promote your current menu?
Actually, no, that's exactly right. We kept our existing menu in place, but we did create a pantry item so that we could sell basic items that people were searching for at the time: bleach, cleaners like Comet with bleach, ground beef, chicken, bacon, anything that we could leverage to get out the door to customers, so we could at least have some cash flow coming from that. The product wasn't coming in and sitting there. They may not be coming in, but we could act as a grocery. Worked well, and in fact, I think that was another way of adding revenue stream into it to make it better, and I think it actually helped. So we adding delivery, adding pantry items, working on existing customers to leverage them to take out more seemed to help. So it was a little bit of a combination of factors, but the pantry item was a big hit, and I would most certainly do that again if I was given the opportunity, because it worked, it seemed to work fine.
Good. Yeah. So again, I think we're all kind of challenged from a labor perspective. Are you finding that you've had to evaluate what products you're using to accommodate for potential challenges from a manpower perspective?
Yeah, so yeah, Fred's right on the money about labor, because it's tough right now to even hire people is tough right now, and find employees is tough right now. We're having trouble getting them, and I need them, but you know, we're doing more with less. And I'd say that what we did do is, since was known for burgers, as everybody knows, beef prices went through the roof. So we looked anywhere we could to source to get pricing, to get good prices with that. We also pivoted to try to sell more chicken products, and family meals that focused on family meals. Family meals were a big deal. We actually saw an uptick in family meals, and in fact, we're selling family meals for corporate clients now, like you would not believe. So that has been a big plus for us, is the family meal ticket item. I'd have to say that right now, we're kind of in a steady mode. We're somewhere in between I want my norm, but I don't want my norm. Customers are looking for values, but at the same time, they're willing to pay a little bit more. So I'm seeing a downtick right now at the moment in the family meal type thing. And I think a lot of that has to do with it's that time of year where people are going on vacations and stuff. So we might be seeing a little bit of that take place. But for the most part, I think as we move back into the fall, especially August, and depending on what school does, the family meals are going to become key again.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to check with Carl to see if he's Carl, do I have you on your phone?
Yes, I apologize. I'm here now.
No problem. No problem. I want to, because again, I was really impressed, and I got a front row seat to watch the communication campaign that you adopted and certainly took full ownership of from a communication perspective. And again, if there's other things that we had previously discussed from a real instrumental pivot of your business, but again, I want you to tell us kind of why you thought that was such a big deal and what you feel like you achieved through that communication campaign.
You know, it was an email campaign, and it really started out with internally with our staff, and just keeping them as aware of what was happening and what we were doing and how we were going to try to get through to the other side. And then I sent one out to our external customer base, and used the word transparent and talked about, you know, the difficulties and the brutal realities of what was going on. And it just kind of translated into not just doing it one day, but did it every day for about 2 weeks, and then cut back to about 3 or 4 days a week, and then eventually to 1 or 2 days. And it was just important to stay in touch with people, like I said, internally. And oh shoot, I'm coming into sight with y'all. Can you mute me?
problem. Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Carl, but the reason I did want him to kind of address that is, again, the two words that he used, transparency and connectivity. So I'm going to take you back off mute. Carl, you're back on.
Okay, sorry, I am crazy off the wall today. So we just stayed in touch with our customers, and it got to a point we were coming up on Easter, and I shared a little bit of personal information with people, and I shared some faith-based things, and then just really told people that we got to look for the good side of what's coming out of this or what's going on every day. So it might just be waking up and going for a walk and seeing a neighbor. From a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, it was, hey, we still have our to-go food, we still have our delivery, we still have this opportunity to connect with people, and when this comes around, those people will hopefully be here for us and with us. And when we did reopen mid to late May, there was a lot of overwhelming support of people coming out and joining us again.
Very nice. Yeah, I was, again, super impressed. I mean, no matter what you buy into, I've always thought that transparency and connectivity to the associates is super important. Here at Performance Foodservice Atlanta, much like everybody on the call, is you get hit with this news and you don't know really what to do tomorrow to prepare for next Friday, because who knows what next Friday brings. And I've found that, despite being so displaced and fragmented as an organization, I almost felt more connected to our team because of that, and the transparency, and then the confidence in the, instilling trust in those people through that communication, I found to be wildly beneficial for us. And, from our conversation sidebar leading up to this, it seems like it had worked with you as well.
It's definitely the way to go.
Carl, and again, you and I are closely connected. If you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about some of the creative things you've done, both philanthropically, but also to keep your team working and stuff with the virtual events and some of the stuff that have helped support the community, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I heard a couple of the other folks talk about, just some of the things that you had to do to pivot and what you did. And we have a pretty big wine cellar, huge inventory, and we just started looking at that and saying, wait a minute, that's just money sitting on a shelf. So if we can move some of it out at a good deal for our guests, along with their family meals or somebody that just wants to put a case of wine in their cellar, let's move it out at 10, 15% over cost, and let's just get those dollars kind of working for us. We took a food truck that we had bought several years ago, and we never really got professionally into the food truck business. We used it more as a catering kitchen for our large catering operation. But when this thing hit, catering dried up and we had no catering. So we decided to turn it into a food truck again. And that was very helpful and beneficial to us. We actually took it to neighborhoods. We put chalk lines on the ground and did all the social distancing, but we would take it, it's kind of an old saying, if the people can't get to the beer, bring the beer to the people. So if the people couldn't get to the food at the restaurants, let's bring the food to the people. So we would schedule with a different neighborhood 7 days a week for about 5 straight weeks. And we would just go to a neighborhood and we would take that, as well as our refrigerated truck with prepared meals. People would come out to the food truck, get their dinner for the family that night, and then buy 1 or 2 prepared meals for the rest of the week. And then we had an idea, kind of a co-idea with a nonprofit to do a virtual dinner. So we created a dinner, 3-course dinner. We created the ingredients that we could put in a box and deliver to people, and even ship it around the country with some dry ice. So the first one we did, it was a fundraiser with a local food relief organization that is still feeding families in need. And we shipped those boxes, sent those boxes to people's houses. They opened the box at 6 o'clock. They would turn their screen on, and they would cook virtually at home while Chef Rodney or one of our other chefs would cook and show them how to go through the process of making each course. And then I was kind of there teaching a couple of drinks and emceeing and just talking a little bit about charity and different things that we were doing. And then so that would take about an hour and 20 minutes. And then people would sit down with their completed meal, and then the virtual screen would change over to a concert. And so we had a couple of different entertainers, performers do a concert. So you have your own little private concert at home over your dinner table with a meal that you prepared, and you were helping out a charity as well. And so those virtual dinners, that one we actually did as a nonprofit event, but we've had some corporations that have canceled all of their business meetings and travel for the rest of the year. And so we're now doing some of those dinners with them for some of their folks that they would normally bring into Greenville and entertain them in Greenville. They're just doing their conferences and conventions virtually.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing for that, Mr. Sobocinski. Hey, Greg, I want to kick this next one back over to you. Obviously, you mentioned as kind of from a 100% franchise based and more casual dining. What have you guys done either from adopting new technology or I know that you have always been a big fan of utilizing technology for business efficiencies. What have you found as far as technology helping the fast casual and the casual dining, and then even more, right, for an independent operator, maybe if they're looking for technology, where you feel like they need to focus most?
Well, I think going back to my earlier comment, we expanded our off-premise channel by putting in technology of direct ordering with the restaurant, our online ordering capability. We integrated that into our website. We went ahead and we put that on different materials in restaurant, so guests could come in and they could leverage that technology. But I think one of the key things we did was the QR codes. If you remember years ago, QR codes were kind of going by the wayside. Then they came back and they've come back in strength. And we use that for contactless ordering, but not just with table cards on the table, so you can not have to touch any menu, whether it's a sanitized hard menu or whether it's a disposable menu, but you can simply shoot the QR code and bring it up on your mobile device. We saw success with that, so then we expanded it into our to-go menus. So as we, it's very expensive to put a to-go menu, print one and put one into every single order that goes off premise. So we've simply shortened that process and put it on a card, put it in there and say, shoot this QR code, and the to-go menu comes up on their mobile device. So then we're continuing to leverage that for additional in-restaurant operations. But those are a couple of ways that we've expanded it. But I think the key thing for us is we've expanded the use of Zoom, we've expanded the use of WebEx, we've expanded the use of all these communication platforms to stay in touch. You referenced that earlier, Kyle, when you first kicked this off. We can talk on the phone all day long, but you get that sense of isolation. My division has always operated virtually, so we're used to that. But even if you're used to that, after 15, 16, 17 weeks of just being in your office and talking on the phone, you got to have that connection with people. And I think that's been mentioned earlier too with team members. So we've held Zoom calls, we've held different calls. We want to have that face-to-face connection with all of our team members so that they really feel involved as opposed to disconnected, as I'm sure is the case in many situations. The other thing we do there is we've leveraged the technology to tell our team members across all of our brands that you're just as important as a guest. We talk about the different procedures that we put in place, and we've given equal prioritization, and we've communicated this to our team members on the PPE materials, the health checks and the confidential logs that we maintain, the face coverings, the hand washing, high touch point sanitation procedures, and then especially what to do in case someone does test COVID in one of your locations. So we've provided everybody with guidance on what to do, how to handle it under each one of the situations, and then we communicated that to them. So we've got different forms of technology for communication and resources, and to make sure everybody's prepared on what to do. Because I got to be honest with you, it's an event out there in the marketplace, but until it happens to you, it's just an event. When it happens to you, it scares the hell out of you, and then you have to know how to deal with it. And that's why we've tried to prepare everybody for that.
Very nice. Thank you. But while I got you on, Greg, what would you say, right? And again, all different levels of magnitude and girth of businesses, but, and we've spoken over the course of the years about, the resources and tools that that your partnerships provide. So what would you say, either for you or understanding the independent operator, what should they be looking at to distributor partners for and or other supplier partners for?
Well, I think we're very fortunate that we've got very strong relationships with all of our various distributors, but especially with PFG. I've known you and Danny for a long time, and we really approach this together as a partnership. There's always going to be issues. If we have something that's not on the truck, hey, we call and you get it taken care of. But it's a mutual respect between each other. It's not that vendor-client relationship. It's that partnership relationship, which is extremely valuable. But that's also helped us work through the product shortages and the cost increases that have occurred over the past 4 months. You know, I think the key here is getting advance notices of supply chain issues with regard to product shortages, because when the truck arrives and there's not something on the delivery truck, that's huge. But if we know about it ahead of time and we get the advance notice that, hey, you expect chicken wing prices are going to go up, or chicken wing supply is going to be interrupted, then you're providing us with backup suppliers so that we're prepared in the case of whatever happens. Now, it doesn't happen 100% of the time. We're always scrambling. This is a strange supply chain environment where there's a lot of interruption. Almost everything's out of your control and out of our control. But I think by working together in that partnership attitude and not getting on the phone and screaming, I hope you've never heard that from any of our restaurants. You certainly don't hear it from me. We work these things through together. That's the best way to get through this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Greg. And I would echo those sentiments for sure. And, you know, while we're kind of on that, I'd love to kind of boast a little bit about, you know, a pivot that we, Performance Atlanta, have adopted. And that, again, is technology based. You know, it's in the supply chain and the inventory challenges and our dissatisfaction in the service level that we had. We feel like we needed to keep our customers more, to your point, proactively communicated with issues. And granted, there are things that are controllable, uncontrollable. So we completely adopted SharePoint, right? Microsoft Suite, SharePoint. So every day at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., we have a procurement supply chain update. It's all on your phone. Sales rep can log into the app, just click a couple clicks, and it tells you exactly what has transpired over the course of, well, from 2 p.m. to 10 a.m. and then 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And this includes everything to cut POs, price increases. I mean, we had 4 tractor trailer loads of sanitizer on order about 12 weeks ago that got commandeered, for lack of a better term, by FEMA, right? So we thought we had 560 cases coming in, and then all of a sudden those disappear, and, you know, almost making commitments to customers before they came in the door because we knew it was a hot commodity. We really have evolved in, again, that connectivity and the technology to assist in that. And I do appreciate the kind words about our partnership. I feel like, you know, that proactivity has really helped our partnership over the years. And again, that's why all of us have been on this call and invited. So thank you for sharing that, Greg. Kind of going to a little bit more forward thinking as we're approaching the last 15 minutes of the call. 2 kind of final questions, and I'll get everybody in order to kind of answer that. We'll start with Carl. Carl, and I know you and I have spoken a couple times because you have different degrees of hospitality, if you will, and service types. And knowing that Southern Pressed has been a really good growth vehicle for you because of the circumstances, how do you feel your brands or that type of brand evolving moving forward? And what do you feel like is maybe the silver lining to all of this, if there is one?
Well, the silver lining is that we're resilient, and we've come through crises before. You know, recently for our generation, you know, 2008 and 9, 9/11, and then obviously the Depression, Great Depression and whatnot. I mean, we're going to come out of this, but we're going to learn a lot of things. We're going to get better. You mentioned Southern Pressed Juicery. I mean, that's one thing that I had been paying attention to, and we have a couple of our concepts that are a little more farm to table, all scratch made meals. But Southern Pressed Juicery is all plant-based, and we saw a huge uptick and surge since this thing started. I mean, that's the one business we have that is up about 30% since year over year since March 15th. And I think it's because it's immune boosting products. It's cold pressed juices, superfood smoothies, and acai energy bowls. And people are trying to boost their immune system. They're trying to stay healthy to fight this and fight it off. And I don't think that's going to change. So, so looking at a little more menu mix with maybe some vegan or plant-based or healthy options, just to make sure you cover all of your bases, is going to be a direction that we're going. And again, like I said, the silver lining is we're resilient. We always get through these things. We have had to tighten our belt. We're making changes with labor, with purchasing, and menus have been reduced in items, and all those things that we're doing now, they'll stick around for a long time until the short-term memory loss sets in and we start resorting back to some of the old bad habits that we had. But it's causing us to really have a lot of better habits that we need to incorporate, along with all the food safety issues and whatnot, that at the end of the day, we're going to come out of this better and stronger than when we went into it.
Thank you, Carl. I think Kyle will be right back. I don't know what happened to his video screen, but I'm sure he'll be signing back on with us. There you are. Hey, buddy. You're back, Kyle. Thank you. I'm glad we lost you for a second there, but you're back.
Okay. I was trying to turn it over to Fred. I know I'm at low bandwidth in the office right now, but Fred, I'm going to turn it over to you for the same similar questions. Either, how do you see your brand evolving, and/or the silver lining as it relates to the future for you in hospitality?
Well, in some ways, as we go through pandemic and stuff like this, obviously every crisis comes with an opportunity, and the opportunity that I first and foremost see is sometimes we run our operations in a fat and happy mode, so to speak, and we have learned, first of all, how to run it in a lean and mean mode now. That's the number one thing. The other thing also, it allows us to see the people that we have as to who are the warriors that you're going to take with you to the next war, or as you grow forward, as to who are the people that have been champions through this process. Because there are chumps and there are champions, as we all go through these kind of processes.
I'm stealing that one.
Okay. and then through, I hate to say this, but there is going to be attrition in the restaurant industry, which is going to bring more opportunities to the people that survive. And that's hopefully all of us. I do not wish that on anyone, because it's sad to see that people would go out of business, and there are a lot of people that I have already seen, even some renowned chefs here in Atlanta that have shut down operations. So that it is going to bring newer challenges, and are we ready to tackle those challenges? We've got to prepare our teams and our people to say, okay, at some point when we do come out of this, there's going to be extra business available, and are we going to be able to challenge ourselves to capture that, or are we going to revert back to our good old happy days? And I don't think we can do that. And then this delivery and carry out model that generally full service sit down restaurants that shy away from, as I think Carl's operations are, our operations kind of made from scratch and all fresh and everything else. So we kind of have now figured out that, hey, we can work with this, and if we can continue to do 30% of our sales or 40% of our sales into carry out and delivery, that's extra, whipped cream and cherry on top of the dessert, so to speak. And I think it's like a little bit of a smorgasbord of opportunities that we have to capture and just continue to grow with each one of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Fred. Mr. Daniell, similarly, obviously you've changed already. What do you foresee the brand, next steps for the brand, and also what are you finding as far as your silver lining takeaway, more optimistic about the future?
That's a good question, Kyle. I think for us at least, number one, being humanizing it, being in touch with our customers is going to be a key to this. Yes, we are a business. We're finding that customers really miss us. They really miss the fact that they can come in. So I think humanizing what we're doing moving forward, continuing to be in touch with customers. Yes, Fred I think is absolutely correct. I think that the takeout model is going to be with us for quite some time to come. I don't think it's going away. I think we're going to have to figure out how to operate in this model even more efficiently than we are. It's working. I mean, look, we're up about 150%, and we're going to keep the metal to the pedal as long as we can do it, to keep it working for us. So we've got to figure out the processes and things that would actually work better for the customer. And so part of that is doing what we're doing right now. I think talking to other restaurants, talking to other people in the industry, finding out what works. I know for us here locally, we're really small business supporting other small businesses. I can give you an example. We have a bakery that's across the street from us, brand new. It was an executive chef who was laid off from Mercedes-Benz, and now he's got a new venture. He's started his own business, and so we're buying bread from him. I'm sorry, Kyle, I took it from you guys, but I gave it to him, and guess what? The customers are loving it. So not so much just the bread's fantastic, but they love the fact that it's another business that's across the street that we're supporting. So, we've got the ability to do that.
Absolutely. I won't kick you out of the circle of trust for giving the local bread guy a chance. And I think it's really smart, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you guys should all know me. I don't care what you buy as long as you buy from us for what you can buy. And I say that kind of facetiously, but really good strategy, right? And that's all about marketability and supporting the community. And that's one of the things that I told, when people who don't know what we do and how challenging food service and hospitality is, when, of course, we become the leading news story internationally as far as the crippling nature of what's happening in the food service and hospitality. I looked at that as a good thing. And going back to, kind of what Fred was saying, and even Carl too, and for you, is the, how important we are to society. And no longer is it just a place to have food. Like, people, I think, hopefully are looking at us, looking at the servers, looking at the dishwashers, looking at the hosts much differently. And to me, I'm wildly optimistic, because I think it, again, humanizing it, right? And then also realizing that we are super important to the fabric of society. And I remember one of the first summits I ever attended at Performance Foodservice Corporate, our HR director at corporate, Mo Amani, said one thing to me, and he said, next time you go out to a restaurant, take a look at around, and you just see the energy, right? And it's just like you were saying, it's like people miss you, people miss your servers, people miss the ambiance, and it really gives me a lot of optimism about the future. So thank you for sharing that. And lastly, as we kind of wrap up, I wanted to get Gregg to chime in too, about, you have an expansive portfolio of brands, and again, what that looks like for Fat Brands, but more importantly, what your silver lining is for you, maybe the franchisees, and obviously operating partners.
Well, I think as what has said, it's been a difficult 4 months. We've rebounded very well. We've been very fortunate. I think the key there has been innovation, and we're going to continue that innovation. So even though 2 of the 3 major brands that I run are up in sales year over year, we're going to continue that innovation. Keep, as you said a moment ago, keep the pedal to the metal and just keep going as hard and as far as you can, but also reward innovation. I think we're passionate. We attack this the same way we'd attack a crisis of a hurricane in Florida, a major hurricane. You know, that disrupts the process and you rebound a certain way. We approach this the same way. But I think the passion is for how we change and how we win in this environment, and how we keep winning. And I think the other part that I want to go back on that someone else had mentioned was the response of the guest. Now, to what you said a moment ago, Kyle, there was an important piece of research that came out about 3 weeks ago, and I apologize, I can't remember the source of this, but it said the consumers were saying eating out again in restaurants were ranked right up there in importance as visiting family and socializing with friends. It was one of the top 3. But the key thing is they had to go out in a safe and relaxing environment. And if you apply that to your business and recognize your teams along with the guests, I think it's an exciting future coming up for us. We're excited about it. We're acquiring additional brands. Our model is to acquire underperforming brands, and we're going to keep doing that. We've got other ones teed up here. It hasn't slowed down that process for us at all. So we're very bullish on going forward.
Guys, listen, again, I want to thank our panelists. Just to revisit those folks who are tuning in, I want to thank Carl Sobocinski, President, Table 301, Fred Delawalla, President, Founder, Restaurant Management Group with brands of Louisiana Bistreaux, Malone's. I want to thank Greg Nettleton, President and Chief Operating Officer, Casual Dining Division at Fat Brands. And Daniell, owner of Kirby G's Diner, as well as the 2018 World Burger Champion, amongst many other things. I really want to thank you guys for taking the time, also being transparent and open to discuss some of the things that work, some of the things that challenged you, the trials and tribulations. As the Vice President of Sales and Performance Foodservice Atlanta, my #1 responsibility is to try to set our company up for success with tools, resources, more importantly, getting intimately involved in our businesses. And I felt very confident in having this dialogue with you 4 gentlemen, with the involvement we've had in the business over the years. We've talked everything about new strategies and pivoting. We've talked about systems in-house. We talked about the importance of communication, both internally, externally. We talked about how technology can support and, really how you can prioritize that. We also talked about the evolution of the brands, food service, and hospitality, and more importantly, how optimistic we can all be as we continue to participate in the restart, the recovery, more importantly, the resurgence. On behalf of Performance Foodservice Atlanta, I can't thank the 4 panelists enough. I really, really, really do wholeheartedly appreciate your time, the relationship we have, the business, and your willingness to help us be a better company so we can service our market and take care of our associates so they can take care of our customers. On behalf of everybody, again, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I feel like we might have actually accomplished something. So we might come back and try to do this again, guys. Really, I learned a lot. I got 2 pages of notes, and I think it's going to be wildly beneficial to all the people that rely on Performance Foodservice to be the consultant for them. More importantly, let's all survive and thrive together. So thank you all very, very much. I will follow to thank you for again the time, and go forth and conquer, gentlemen. Thank you again for the business and everything. We'll tune in later.
Thank you all.